We're going to wait for the bells.
And it's always in the middle of the prelude, isn't it? Yeah. It really upsets me.
Well, let the Zoom people know we're waiting.
Zoom people, we're waiting for the bells to ring. Yeah, right. Well, we'll wait 2 minutes. Ding dong, the bells are. The wicked witch is dead. Okay. Are there more? Okay. I'll start. Can I start? Can I start, guys? Oh. Up. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Dee Camhi, and I'll be leading the service today. Reverend Matt will be presenting our message this morning. Our opening words this morning are by Margaret Kelp. As surely we belong to the universe, we belong to it together. We join here to transcend the isolated self, to reconnect, to know ourselves to be at home, here on earth, under the stars, under the sun, linked with each other. And so today I want to welcome you with Live from Fellowship Hall. It's our LCUUF Sunday service. Oh, I welcomed you again, right? You heard me? Okay. Our announcements were on a slideshow before the service. If you didn't see them, don't worry. They were sent out by email yesterday with the order of service for today. So, a few notes. Our building is open for all in-person services, and we continue to offer our services on Zoom each Sunday for those who are unable to attend or choose not to attend. And now a special welcome to our visitors. If you're visiting for the first time or have returned or reconnected with us after a long absence, we invite you to tell us, raise your hand, say your name, and tell us where you're from. And if you're on Zoom, use the Zoom raise hand feature, or just turn your video on and wave your hand, and we'll ask you to unmute. So if you're in the room, anybody new?
Hi, good morning. My name is Marcia Bully, and I'm from Bellingham, Washington. And I am here because I am looking to move myself and my husband, who has dementia, here in August. So I am here looking at some different places, and I'm a longtime UU, grew up UU, and this your fellowship is one of the things that made Ahihic seem like it could be the right place for us. Thank you.
Welcome. Anyone else here new? Okay, now let's switch to those on Zoom. Is there anyone new with us on Zoom?
I don't see anybody raising a hand.
Can you lower his voice a little?
I don't see anybody
Oh,
lowering.
thank you, Richard. Thank you. And just a brief note, we offer a wide variety of services on various topics presented by our members, outside guests, as well as our minister, Reverend Matt Alspaugh. We hope you return to sample this variety of thought and belief. And so now we are going to light the chalice. We speak so often of brokenness in religious lives. Let us today speak of wholeness. You're welcome, all of you. Every part of you, beautiful, just the way you are. Here, you do not need to be something special, something more, something less. No holding back, no hiding, no exerting yourself, no trying to be more or be more. You have inherent worth and dignity. Nothing to prove here. Nothing to prove to me or the person sitting next to you or to the children or to anyone. You don't have to try and be witty or be more quiet or be more outgoing. You're beautiful, every part of you, beautiful just the way you are. You don't need to change anything about yourself to be welcome here. Your skin, your hair, your belly, your limbs, your face, all beautiful just the way they are. You are extraordinary. Each and every one of you different from each and beautiful in your own beautiful way. We are breathtaking. Let us worship together. So now let's light our chalice with these words that we sing together.
We kindle this light in celebration for the life that we share.
And each week we take time to remind ourselves that we belong to a community which cares for each other. We do this by sharing any significant joys or sorrows in our lives. If you have a joy or sorrow to share, you can type it into the chat box if you're on Zoom, and we'll read those aloud. And for those in the room, let us recall the joys of whatever you're celebrating. Are there any joys anyone wants to share with us? Larry?
I have two joys. First of all, how about Nevada? It's my new favorite state.
Yay!
And the second is, I was so lucky this week. I had a chance to go to Moonlight and Magnolias, and Fred Coastling is unbelievable.
Oh, if you haven't seen it, definitely go. It'll be here all next weekend. I think it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the Bravo Theater. Oh, and I have a joy.
Hi, I'm Paula, and we had the opportunity to host some of the artists for the Feria, and a big shout out to so many Unitarians that did host. And it's a bit of work, but it was such an honor to have these artists, and I'm wearing Feria today. So if they're still on today, go there, buy lots of stuff.
And to continue that shout out, anybody else here who has either hosted artists or done other work for the Feria? I was surprised how many other people in the congregation were involved in the Feria, and that was just
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so you've got.
Hi, I'm Michael. I think you all know me. My joy is that, as you know, I'm the conductor and one of the founders of the Lake Chapala Orchestra. We've been putting on concerts for 4 years, apart from when the pandemic struck. And we have a Christmas concert coming up. Well, it's not really about Christmas, it's just that it happens at Christmas time. And we announced it to our email list and to those people that were at our last concert in October. We sold out the concert of 2 performances within 5 days. And that shows the wonderful support that the community has for the orchestra. And that's my joy, because we're bringing music, live orchestral music, to you, our audience.
And my joy is that my son, Eric, who some of you know, is coming down this weekend, and he's bringing a new cachorro. Is that the word? Cachorro, a puppy. And we think his name is going to be Bean, which is frijol in Espanol. And are there any joys on Zoom?
Yes, this is to Sharon Rose Robinson.
You can speak a little louder, Richard.
This is to Sharon Rose Robinson. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Happy birthday and best wishes today. Love, Garrett.
Happy birthday.
That's it?
Okay. Any more?
Yeah. I have a big joy. We took the Senate.
Yay! And very close in the House. Very close. So you did your job, you did your work, and we will. How many people voted? Yes, look at that. I have a couple Canadians who couldn't vote, but they're on our side for sure. Okay, so, okay, no, now let's voice our concerns or sorrows. Whatever you or the world may be holding that is in need of our healing and caring thoughts. Those on Zoom, you're welcome to type sorrows and concerns in the chat box. And again, we'll start with the folks here in the room. Any sorrows or concerns that people would like to share?
My concern for my lovely wife, Dee Dee, who's going in for surgery on Tuesday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Colleen Beery. My concern is for my sister-in-law, Katie, who is like a sister to me, and her sister Beth, who also lived with my family for a while. They're both undergoing some really difficult medical problems.
Mm.
Hi, I'm Gabriella. I'm really ecstatic about having found my little dog. He was taken from me about 5 days ago.
So that's a joy.
It's so joy. We put up posters and finally we'd have to pay, but we finally got the dog back and
Congratulations.
hallelujah. Really happy.
Okay, so any more sorrows? Any sorrows that we want to share on Zoom?
From Bob Coaches, please light a candle of concern for my friend Harry Bartlett, who is fighting health issues. And that's it.
Okay. And so now this candle from our care team represents those sorrows that are too raw, too difficult for us to share aloud. Some of us have had losses, parents, children, grandchildren, pets, losses that remain present with us every day. So many of us have burdens, anger, fear, and frustration, all of those things that weigh heavy on our hearts. We light this candle for all those unspoken sorrows. And now let us share a moment of silence to hold in our hearts both the sorrows and the joys that have been shared this morning. And the bells are there to help us meditate. Thank you. They're really with us today. Okay, so our opening hymn is called We Would Be One. And please rise if you're willing and able and join me in singing. Oh. Well, stay right. Well, we'll all dance a little while. C. No, that's not a C. C. Here he comes.
When I recorded this, but anyway, I'll play it for you.
We would be one as now we join in singing. And so you ask, why do I pledge? It's a very easy answer. Larry, my husband, and I joined the fellowship back at the very beginning of the pandemic. And, and I call it a fellowship, not a church, due to my religious background. Being an extrovert, the pandemic was extremely difficult for me. I was so used to being out and about, and being cooped up in my home, even though I had the company of my husband, was a real challenge. Being able to tune into the Sunday service every week was a real help. I grew up in a Jewish family in Chicago. I graduated from a high school while 95% of my class was Jewish. So when I went to college, where I learned very quickly that I was a real minority, I was really amazed. There I made friends with people of all different religions and even took courses in comparative religions. One of the best parts of my education was the emphasis on social justice, and I was so proud to be able to be do my part in working for the desegregation movement in my city, Chicago. As I grew older, my religious education became less and less important to me. And when I fell in love and married a non-Jewish man and was disowned by my father, I was on my own. Fortunately, my mother brought me back into the family after the birth of my first child. I continued my religion in a very limited way. So fast forward to my marriage to Larry in 2012. He was raised Unitarian, and when he brought me to a UU church in Massachusetts the first time, I was very open. But when I entered the sanctuary and I saw a cross on the stage, I was completely turned off. My childhood training certainly caught up with me. When I moved to Mexico, I joined the Jewish community, and I'm still involved. But when Larry convinced me to try Unitarianism, I was a bit reluctant, but I'm so glad I did. I feel so much part of this community, and I'm so glad I came. This fellowship means a lot to me. So when I was asked to donate, I'm quite willing, and we have already pledged and donated. Watching the group grow in the short time since I've been a member has been quite heartening. I'm happy to be on both the welcoming and the Sunday service committees, and it's been a joy to be connected to all of you. As of today, our pledge thermometer, as you can see, is showing that we have received pledges for 2023-24 totaling 604,050 pesos from 35 pledged units. If anyone hasn't pledged this year, please fill out a pledge form that's on the welcoming table and put it in the offering basket when it goes around. If you want, you can send your pledge by email to treasurer@lakechapalauu.org as soon as possible. So now we're going to pass the basket. Instructions for payments to the fellowship are on a slide during the announcements before the service. For the people here at the fellowship, we'll pass the basket. Thank you. And while you're considering your gifts to fellowship, remember that each month LCUUF donates 5,000 pesos or more to an organization in the Lakeside community. We share 1/2 of the offer collected at the fellowship each week. And for the month of November, we're supporting Operation Feed. For over 30 years, Operation Feed volunteers have been providing food and improving the lives of the very poor and marginalized community for the people of San Juan Cosala. They provide weekly food dispenses to 150 families and individuals who would go hungry without the aid. Operation Feed also supports new programs like cooking classes, crochet projects, and English classes, which I participate in every Sunday, to help people develop additional income sources and skills, offering them a hand up, not just a handout. So if you're not attending the fellowship in person, please donate to Share the Basket when you pay your pledge. Donate to Share the Basket separately or indicate what part of the donation is for Share the Basket. The offering will now, right, okay? And now we are going to have a meditation with Matt.
And so today, we're going to have a little bit of a brief exposure to what many might consider a somewhat more advanced meditation. I wish we could take more time with this. This is a practice exploring the perceptual boundaries of our bodies. And so this today is just really a broad outline. And I'm just going to talk over the bells because in the beginning here, I'm kind of talking. But this particular kind of practice can be rather profound if you delve into it. Again, this is just a little bit of an introduction. So why don't we start by just placing one hand in the other, just gently having the hand rest in the other hand. And you might just settle into your chair, or if you're laying down at home, wherever, and get comfortable and close your eyes or soften your vision. And just become aware of your body. Just become aware of the heaviness of your body, the contact, the touch of your body with your chair or whatever you're laying on. And just notice those sensations. The contact, as well as maybe sensations of warmth or coolness, maybe in different parts of your body. Sensations of perhaps air movement. Maybe you notice your clothes touching your body, hanging on your body, and continue to return to that sense of contact with your chair or whatever. Now let's come to the hands. You might notice there as well a sense of warmth or coolness, or maybe both in your hands. And of course, that sense of touch, one hand to the other. And as you dwell on this sense of sensation, bodily sensation, what you may notice is that the distinction between the two hands becomes a bit fuzzy. You're feeling warmth or coolness, touch, without it really noticing which hand is which. And so the practice is simply to return to those bodily sensations, noticing, perhaps if you like, naming them. If you feel warmth, silently say to yourself, warmth. If you feel coolness, silently say coolness. And just observe that sense of fuzziness, that sense of loss of the boundary of your body from hand to hand. And if we had more time, we might explore other parts of the body. Again, noticing those bodily sensations, stepping away from the sense of the body as being a separate thing from the room, and observing how those sensations allow us to allow the perception of the edge of our bodies to sort of dissolve, to become fuzzy, kind of disappear. And in this way, we can begin to feel a connection with the room we're in, with the space, with the larger world, from a perceptive point of view. But for now, we'll return to this time and space and be together with each other.
So this is a litany, a responsive reading. I'm going to read the Roman type, and you please read the italics. Fortunately, it's easy. You just have one word, separation. So can you repeat after me, separation? Okay. When my religion is the truth, when my religion is the truth and yours is heretical, when families are divided into red and blue, and conversation runs quickly to argument, when a person's age defines his or her intellect or their worth, when our postal code buys us privilege, when the vegans, the vegetarians, the carnivores, and the ketos cannot eat at the same table, when shopping becomes more enjoyable than spending time with family and friends, when my bumper sticker makes you seethe behind the wheel in anger, when we are policed based on the color of our skin or the kink of our hair, when my news is fake but yours is real, when one's clothing, hairstyles, access to jobs is based on a pair of chromosomes, when invisible boundary lines on the earth constrain our freedom of movement, when fear or anger stops us from speaking the truth. And now it's Matt.
Why can't we get along? Why do we split up in groups, whether they be nations, religions, political parties? Why do we disagree so much? Why can't we, be one? First off, I want to thank Bob Coaches and the Humanist Discussion Group for leading me to the book that started me thinking about this sermon. The book is The Dawn of Everything by David Graeber and David Wengrow. It's a thick and meaty book, almost 700 pages, and I'm a slow reader, so I haven't yet finished it. But the date for this sermon was set, and I felt I had to say something from that book. And then I read in the book the discussion of schismogenesis and its role in human history, which led to today's topic. The term schismogenesis describes how people or groups of people tend to define themselves one against another. The term was created by anthropologist Gregory Bateson in the 1930s. Now, as an aside, Bateson was married to the much more well-known anthropologist Margaret Mead, and they did field work together in the Pacific Islands. But schismogenesis, what is it? As an example, I think of the old First World, Second World, Cold War division that existed when I was growing up. We in the United States defined ourselves as free, democratic, and capitalist in opposition to what we saw as unfree, totalitarian, and communist qualities of the USSR and China. Schismogenesis drove the USA to reject anything that was even slightly non-capitalist, which is a key reason why today things like healthcare and public transportation there are so broken. But I digress. Back to the book. In the book, Graeber and Wingrove explore how schismogenesis affected many cultures in history. In particular, they compare the societies of the First Nations of the West Coast of Canada and the USA. They compare two large cultural groups with which anthropologists have named the Northwest Coast and the California. These groups were highly different, even though they both had similar situations, abundant food in particular. The Northwest Coast cultures, extending from Alaska through British Columbia to Oregon, focused on salmon and other sea resources as their primary food source. They had strongly hierarchical societies. They enslaved people. And of course, they threw those great ostentatious and excessive parties known as potlatches. The purpose of those parties was to give away items of great value, which elevated the giver and shamed the recipient. Now, the California cultures were quite different. They focused on harvesting nuts and acorns, even though salmon was available to them as well. They had societies that were almost Puritan in their approach to the world, if I may use that word. Work hard, live simply, in an egalitarian society with no hereditary privilege. Now, the point is that both of these cultures knew about each other. They traded, they interacted. However, they had little respect for each other. It's possible that schismogenesis, this drive to not be like them, made each group more distinct than it would have otherwise been. The Californians didn't depend on salmon and fishing much because they didn't want to become like the Northwest Coast folks, whom they considered fat and lazy, for those folks depended on slaves to do a lot of the work. On the other hand, the Northwest Coast peoples wouldn't be caught dead doing ordinary tasks like gathering wood, for those were slave tasks. What Graeber and Winfrow claim is that there was no evolutionary pressure on these cultures to progress in a certain way. For example, to develop farming and herding and cities and bronze and iron tools and democracy and television and Twitter. These cultures didn't follow the Western European idea of progress. Not because they were never given the secret treasure map, but because they knew exactly what they were doing in their own time. They saw their neighbors, their strange and disgusting neighbors, and they didn't want to be like them. So they became not like them. They defined themselves in part by what they were not. Now, sometimes this schismogenesis can be useful, and sometimes it can be harmful. Graeber and Wingrove relate the story of the Tlaxcalteca, the people of the Tlaxcala region in the east of present-day Mexico City. Now, the Tlaxcalteca were in a long-running war with the Aztecs when the Spanish arrived in 1519. Consequently, Tlaxcala was battling the Spanish as well as the Aztecs. And even though the Spanish were winning those battles, they were gradually being decimated by the more numerous Tlaxcalteca. The Tlaxcalteca apparently met in council, debated, they kind of had a representative democracy kind of thing going, or more like a town meeting kind of thing. They debated. There's even records of this. And they agreed to align with Cortez. That is, after they tried to kill him. They agreed with the Spanish that they would stop fighting the Spanish, and if the Spanish would join them in battling their bitter enemies, the Aztecs. So it was that classic strategy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And it worked. The Spanish and the Tlaxcalteca defeated the Aztecs, and the Tlaxcalteca were treated with respect by the Spaniards, at least for a few decades. So Graeber and Wingrove suggest that schismogenesis, separation, is a natural part of human relationships. That separation is part of how we organize, part of our being. Unless you think this is bizarre, foreign, not like us, consider how some of us as Unitarian Universalists define ourselves by describing what we're not in opposition to other religions. They would say, these UUs, we UUs don't have to believe in God. We don't read the Bible or pray. We don't have to do any of those things. We don't have creeds or doctrine or a bishops or a pope. But then ask them what we do believe or what we do as practices, and they are flummoxed. They define themselves by what they are not. Separation.
This is a poem from Gitanjali, a text by the Indian poet and Nobel laureate, I can't pronounce his name, Rabindranath Tagore, written in 1910. It's number 69. The same stream of life that runs through my veins night and day runs through the world and dances in rhythmic measures. It's the same life that shoots in joy through the numberless blades of grass and breaks into tumultuous waves of leaves and flowers. It's the same life that is rocked in the ocean cradle of birth and death, in ebb and flow. I feel my limbs are made glorious by the touch of this world of life, and my pride is from the life throb of ages dancing in my blood this very moment.
Could it be that separation is not merely a quality of human nature, of our human evolution, but perhaps of life itself? Could separation be essential to the evolution of life? We still don't know exactly how life came to be on Earth, but we have some fairly good ideas. When we think of the essential qualities of living things, we think of things like reproduction and evolution, but the most fundamental thing is that life has to process energy. Energy is required for living things to both be active, to move around perhaps, to grow and reproduce offspring. The essence of life is energy flow. These days, that energy flow starts with the sun, flowing through plants, through photosynthesis, then to other creatures that consume plants and creatures that consume them. But we now believe that earliest life began in undersea vents, where the energy arrived not from the sun, but in the form of hot, chemical-rich gases. This short video describes some current research on the origins of life.
came from? Everybody asks that question. And also, could life exist elsewhere? Part of the piece of the puzzle is actually, if you want to look for life on other icy worlds other than Earth, then you have to understand life on Earth first. Simulates how a hydrothermal system under the right pressure and temperatures would flow continually. Everything requires energy input, especially when you're talking about organic synthesis. The great thing about these hydrothermal vents is you have a lot of free energy already there. You really can start to link up these organic molecules and form longer chains, and those longer chains are really the key to getting to DNA synthesis.
So those early energy flows involve in converting those simple biochemicals into other larger chemicals and ultimately into the building blocks of life. But there is a problem. Those chemicals have to be attached or contained somewhere. Initially, it is believed that they could have been attached to surfaces in these undersea vents. These diagrams show how simple substances, oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, can attach and combine on the right surface to form more complicated biochemicals. And later, these biochemicals came to be surrounded, this is more conjecture, came to be surrounded by lipid layers, that is oil or fat layers that formed protocells, separating those chemicals from the outside. The lipid protocells form easily in the right conditions. I think you can actually make it, maybe you mix water and oil together, you kind of create some of those. But ultimately, these protocells evolve into tiny cell-like structures, which could take in energy and then produce enough of a variety of biochemicals from that energy that they could then expand and perhaps divide. Later, these protocells would develop information processing mechanisms of RNA and DNA and gradually differentiate into the diversity of life forms around us today. But the profound point is this: life involves separation. Every life form has a boundary. There is an inside and an outside. Complex life has multiple boundaries. We humans have bodies bounded by our skin, but we're made up of organs with their own boundaries. Those are made up of cells with boundaries, which are themselves made up of organelles with their own boundaries. It seems that from one point of view, a key activity of life is keeping stuff separate, keeping our precious bodily fluids inside, managing the intake of the good stuff, expelling the bad stuff, keeping enemies out, keeping longtime friends in. And by friends, I mean symbiotic creatures like mitochondria, which are believed to have been independent creatures at one time. Or another good example we know of now are all those essential bacteria in our guts. Sentient life has to be aware of separation. I have to know what is me and what is not me. Even life forms that we don't really consider sentient, like plants, can react to thwart attacks on their boundaries and can also react to drive away competing plants in the area surrounding them. It seems that separation is built into the very existence of all life. And yet, there's a tension there. As Rabindranath Tagore suggests, and I'm struggling with that name too, he suggests that even with the separate forms of life, life is running through our veins. The same life that's in blades of grass and leaves and flowers. Life draws out from that common origin. Within the separation, there is commonality. The same cellular structures, the same double strands of DNA, the same energy cycles, dancing in rhythmic measures, the life throb of ages. Separation, born from commonality.
This is a poem by Joy Harjo, the first Native American poet to be named Poet Laureate in the United States. Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon. Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving away tonight. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father. He is your life as well. Remember the earth whose skin you are, red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. We are all earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them and listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember that you are all people and all people are you. Remember you are this universe and this universe is you. Remember all is in motion, is growing, it's all you. Remember language comes from this. Remember the dance language that life is. Remember.
So even though we live as separate creatures in a world punctuated by division, many of us have an intuition that this is not how things have to be. We have a yearning to not be separate, to find commonality, to seek some merger. We yearn for unity, perhaps with each other, perhaps everyone, perhaps something larger than ourselves, perhaps with the universe itself. I think it says something that one of the three values that this congregation, LCUUF, said were important, that one of those values is oneness. The other values, by the way, well, the three of them were oneness, openness, and compassionate service. Now, I've been a meditator for a long time. And while we meditators don't generally go around comparing meditation experiences, I will note that some of my profound and meaningful meditation experiences have involved a sense of deep interconnectedness with everything, a warm, comforting feeling of union with the universe. These are rare experiences, and you usually can't will them to happen, though certain meditation practices like what we explored earlier can help. When such moments happen, they can be profound and they reside in our memories. They hint that whatever our destination is of this life, it is about letting go of the separation, letting go of the me even, and merging with that unity. Meditation is sometimes called the slow path, but it's not the only path. There's been a resurgence in an alternative path of using psychedelic substances as a faster path towards these intuitive understandings. There's been much work recently with the use of psilocybin, the ingredient of magic mushrooms, as a tool to help people facing death. Such people often return from their psychedelic journeys free from the fear of death. The message of such journeys is often that what will come will be joyful, will be love. It will involve deep connection or union with that love. The ego, the parts of ourselves that are focused on separation, may just drop away. I recently read an article about near-death experiences. Now, while some have specific religious imagery, many have had similar elements, a sense of being out of the body, being at peace, perhaps being drawn towards a tunnel or being seen or drawn towards a bright light. And certainly in these cases, these people return to the living. Their brains did not stop functioning completely. Such near-death experiences don't really clarify what's on the other side of death. The veil remains in place. But such experiences do hint at yearning towards merger, that yearning towards merger that I mentioned earlier. Nobody has near-death experiences where they are transported back to their cubicle at work or to the local sports bar to hang out with their friends. These experiences are uniformly far more mystical, like some of the meditation experiences or some of the psychedelic experiences. These near-death experiences suggest the sense of separation, of ego just drops away, and this sense of unity, of joining, oneness takes over. When this happens to us, by whatever means, remember it. Remember what you learn. As Joy Harjo tells us, remember you are all people and all people are you. Remember you are this universe and this universe is you. Remember. Okay, Michael, I'm hoping you have a solution to our hymn problem. Yes, I have. It's all in the box. Our hymn today is Soon the Day Will Arrive, and we'll give Michael a few moments to oh, you're all ready. Okay, I invite you to rise and join us in singing. This is an adaptation of the Jewish song, again, a hard word for me, Bashnaha Aba'ah, is that right? Which expresses belief in a better tomorrow. So please rise, well, you already have, and join me in singing as you're willing or able.
Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on that day thunderclouds will appear. Wait and see
As human beings, both as organic beings and as sentient beings, we live with this tension of being both separate and striving for unity. We are born in separation, and yet we hope to ultimately live into some sense of unity. May we live with this tension, and each of us continue in our spiritual journeys towards togetherness, towards unity, towards the ultimate. May it be so.
And let us extinguish our chalices with these words which we read together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the light of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world.